G'day guys, this is Paul with MultiSkilled. Please pardon the hoarse voice, I'm struggling with a bit of laryngitis. Off the bat, I'd just like to thank you guys who have subscribed. We jumped up to 350 subscribers. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it really does help us when people subscribe to the videos and comment and like and share them. So, this information we try to keep it very practical because we just want to see people make it through what we've got coming up. So we really do appreciate that. Now, like in all my videos, please stick to the end because all the practical advice follows at the end. So today what we're going to talk about is the importance of skill acquisition for preppers. And this is a really important topic because, we're very fortunate because we live in civilization with technology and we're very well, we have a very comfortable life, so it makes life very, very easy for us. Now, the reason why we bother with skills is because this is something that nobody can take away from us. It takes people a long time to develop skills and, no one can snatch it away from you. So it adds value to you as a person. So you have more to offer than just your physical body. Ladies, this is really important for you. In times of conflict, in times of disaster and social unrest and political unrest and things like that, many women have to resort to selling themselves because they don't have skills to offer. So this is important for you to understand. You need to build your skills. Men, for you to be respected in community, in the society, and have a position of respect, you need to be able to produce. If you're not able to produce, you'll be invisible in society. So this is important for both men and women. Now, I have my notes here to keep me on track. Now, a well-functioning community needs skilled people. And we need skilled people because if we want to recover as a community after a disaster or societal collapse, we need people who can get things back on track. Now, there are 5 stages of disaster recovery. I learned this when I was in the fire brigade. The first one is search and rescue, which is the earliest stage. After that, you have emergency relief. Next comes early recovery. After that is medium to long-term recovery, and then you've got your community development that runs in parallel of all of those stages. So let's have a look at search and rescue phase. The search and rescue phase is where we mobilize, we find, and we extract people. Now, depending on what type of disaster, this can look very different. It can be anywhere between hours to weeks. Now, if we're looking at hyperinflation causing massive problems, this might be weeks or months to recover from, or even years. So the critical skills in this stage are emergency management, first responder skills, for example, your ambulance, your firemen, your rescue technicians, and of course, first aid. Now, after the search and rescue phase, we go to the emergency relief phase. And that phase is concerned about keeping people alive. So it is the basics. It's the food, the water, the shelter. So in this situation, you're going to be looking for things like security, first aid, medication, food, water, and shelter. So depending on the conditions, the emergency relief phase can take a very, very long time and is dependent on community preparedness, accessibility to the area, and the volume of the resources that are available in that community. And when survival is no longer the primary concern, the recovery phase can begin. But before that happens, you have to be able to get people to that stage. They have to survive. So there's 3 categories of critical skills here. The first one is your medical. So people with skills in field hospital management, medic skills, midwifery, doctors, dentists, veterinarians. These are all very important. After that, you've got your restoration or your development of critical infrastructure. So people who can do water transport, treatment and storage, your sanitation, wastewater and waste disposal, your communication systems and networks, your civil engineers and your earth moving, your electrical engineering and your electricians, construction, builders, carpenters, and then transportation. And then the third category is your food, people who can do the field kitchen management, food preparation, the baking and the cooking. So once people are past the survival stage and just getting the needs met, then we look at the early recovery phase. And early recovery phase happens when you've got a more stable situation with access to food, water, and shelter. Now, life is returning to normal. So for us, when we're expecting societal collapse and hyperinflation, I don't know when this is going to happen, but the focus needs to be on reducing the dependence on outside aid and eating into your stores that you have stored away. So it's looking at self-sufficiency. So the critical skills in this particular phase are your food production skills. So your gardening, your farming, your fishing, your animal husbandry, your beekeeping, your hunting, and your foraging. These are critical. After that, you've got your food processing and preservation. So your butchery, smoking, drying, canning, pickling, salting, and fermenting, so that you've got the food to last you long term, so the society can keep functioning as normal. Now, after that early recovery phase, we end up in the medium to long-term recovery phase. So the infrastructure and production is developed, or it's being restored, and society is strengthened because you've now got these communal structures and systems now functioning, and the opportunities now are starting to develop. So you're starting to develop your community or your society. So the critical skills in this stage, it comes down to things like project management and administration, your materials processing, forestry, wood, your stone and sand, your metallurgy and chemistry. You've got mechanical engineering, electronic engineering and repair, petrol, diesel and small engine mechanics, machining, blacksmithing, textiles, sewing, cobbling and leatherworking. So being able to fix shoes and being able to do leatherwork, logistics, and then documentation. Now, I stuck documentation in there. I never ever see it in any lists. You don't want to have to teach people from scratch every time. You want to be able to document these things well, especially if they're complex projects. Documentation is critical. Now, running in parallel of all of these phases, you've got your community development and maintenance. This is really important. Any cohesive community has to be built on mutual trust. So people who are being traumatized, people who are struggling in their faith or struggling in having any kind of hope, they need to be taken care of, and this is critical. It runs in parallel to all of these other ones. So the critical skills here would be things like your pastors, your priests, your police officer, military, or a teacher. If you can have some kind of normality in the last phase or last few phases there, you can keep kids going to school. You can deal with people who are traumatized. You'll have a much, much stronger community. You'll be able to build on common values. So it leads me then to choosing your skill set. Now, we've had a look at these phases of disaster recovery. You can apply that to a SHTF situation, but it still comes down to you choosing which skills you want to focus on. Now, you need to consider a number of different factors here. Your age being one, your health and physical fitness, your current relevant experience, what can you draw on to learn new skills? Your gender, men are 30% on average stronger than women. Your access to resources, tools and consumables while you're learning the new skills. Some skills cost money to learn. The criticality of the intended skill in a rebuilding or a disaster situation. The time it takes to master the skill and the opportunity that you're going to have to be able to practice those skills. Now, you need to understand, guys, we have to start looking at how traditional roles functioned. We can't ignore traditional roles. They were there for a reason, and society and civilizations were built on traditional roles. Have a look before feminism, and that's going to give you an idea of really what you're suited to do based on your physical attributes. Now, feminism was only made possible after the Industrial Revolution, where machines basically closed the gap between men's physical strength and the woman's lack of physical strength. But if you have a look at when society collapses or it's a disaster or in a war zone, there's very, very few feminists. There's very, very few feminists saying we want equal rights to be on the front lines. We want equal rights to be hauling stone out of a stone quarry. It doesn't exist. So it's a fancy notion. Just put it out of your mind. Now, when society collapses and technology is no longer available, you see feminism collapse immediately. And you'll see that there are no militant feminists in a disaster or a war zone. Now, to be useful in the community, you have to be multi-skilled. Cross-functional skills are extremely valuable. For example, knowing how to sew means that you can make clothes, you can repair clothes, you might be able to fix shoes, you might be able to stitch a tarpaulin, or you could even stitch a cut. So these are the kind of things that you're looking for. Now, there are two skills that are perhaps the most useful of them all. Skill number one is your ability to network. You should be a prolific networker and build networks and relationships with people. Skill number two is you should be an expert negotiator. The better you are at negotiating, the happier both parties are when a deal is made. Now, in order for you to build your skill set, there are some ways that you can get this information and some places that you can go. And here are some practical ways you can do it. You can join clubs. People are happy to share when you're in a club where people have got common interest. The next one is to visit old people's homes, talk to people there. They've had a lifetime of experience that many are happy to share. Next one is to open your heart and your home. Open your home up to people. They will come in and they will love the fact that you don't have the polished silverware. They'll see you warts and all, and they'll be willing to share. Next one is cut out your meaningless relationships. Any relationships that aren't developing you as a person, or they're not developing the circle in which you belong, they're not worthwhile. So you need to cut those out and start looking at developing other relationships where you can benefit people and they can benefit you. Next point is to learn from your parents. Your parents have made it this far. They know more than you do. So ask them, to share some of their skills with you. Next point is to look for education, not entertainment. Reduce the amount of time you're sitting online on doing worthless endeavors and start looking at learning these skills, joining these forums. And the last point is to offer to help people who have a desirable skill set. This is absolutely critical, because reciprocity, when you do something for someone, they feel obliged to do something for you. This is often the catalyst of fantastic relationships. Now, in closing, guys, for those of you that made it this far, food stores and equipment help in the initial relief phase. But when you start to think long-term recovery, you have to start looking at self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency isn't optional. It is absolutely required for society to function. And we have to be brutally honest and ask ourselves, would people be willing to feed me and give me room and board for the skills I currently possess? And if the answer is no, then you've got no time to waste. You've got to knuckle in and you've got to start learning some skills fast that people are going to be willing to pay for. Now, good luck. I really hope that this has helped you guys out. I have more articles and more more videos coming that hopefully will help you to get started on the right foot. For those of you that are not subscribed, please subscribe to this channel. It helps us out a lot. We'll be posting this in our Facebook group. You'll see the link below. You can follow us on Instagram as well. Guys, I appreciate you staying this long. I appreciate you watching the video. Take care and good luck. All the best.